What's up guys, Lewi here. Today we're starting off a new series on the channel, which is conversations, real conversations with agents that I either know, I work with, I respect, I want to talk to them, and just having real conversations. It's not specifically going to be like, how does your strategy for content do this or whatever. It's real, just like breaking it down, because at the end of the day, remember, as we all go through this journey together, we're realtors, that's what we do, but that's not our entire label. So I want to uncover and unpack some of the things that make us who we are, how we tick, how we operate, and really get down to what's interesting about all of us inside of this industry and what's the one thing that connects us all. So our first episode here is with my business partner, Peter Twolan. He is in Ottawa, Canada. He's a monster on YouTube and kills it with his business, and he has a whole integration with Google, YouTube, and like runs his entire business this way. It's pretty interesting. We're going to jump into like his past, what got him into real estate, how he works with this system he's built, and a few other things along the way. So let's bring him on. Here's Peter. What's up, guys? All right, we are here with one of my business partners and friends in our northern neighbor, Canada, Peter Twolan. Peter, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, brother. Thanks again for the opportunity to get on here. I'm really excited about just, hashing out some of these creative ideas we've been talking about.
Yeah, well, dude, that seems like we never have enough time to talk about the things we want to talk about because it takes so long. But yeah, man, well, I appreciate you taking the time. I think something we've jammed out with about since kind of collaborating and working together is like, the systems. Obviously productivity is my thing. Like anything that I can do to shorten time and to take away unnecessary steps for my business is huge. So I want to start from the start here. How long have you been in real estate?
Coming up on 9 years now.
Okay. So before we get into the Google and like the wizardry and stuff you do, like take me back to then, like what got you into real estate then, and then what was the initial journey like, because the way I did business when I first started is extremely different than I do it now. So what did that look like at the start for you?
For me, I was actually born and raised Ottawa boy. So I'd done a lot of different work environments, started in advertising, marketing and advertising through college, and then ended up in high tech areas, working in high tech companies, which is really big in Ottawa. We have Silicon Valley North, which is actually the largest concentration of high tech companies north of San Francisco.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's massive. It's actually the second GDP producer for Ottawa, aside from the federal government here in town. So I worked with high tech for a little while, doing some marketing there. Then I switched over to hotels. I kind of fell into hotels, opening boutique hotels, really high-end hotels.
But you opened hotels? You owned hotels?
No, not myself.
I was picturing Basil Fawlty there from Fawlty Towers.
I should get like the Monopoly face with the eyes. I got the haircut, so it'd be perfect. I look like your pictures in your background.
Yeah.
No. I was on sales teams for opening boutique hotels. So we would be in the beginning, kind of opening the hotels, deploying all the different furniture to the rooms, and then started to really kind of divulge into how to get the market penetration to really build out that different markets for government associations and all the different sales areas. And so from there, I opened about 4 hotels in different areas of the city. And then from there, I ended up into airlines. I worked with a small regional airline called Port Airlines out of the Toronto Island Airport. So I was on the road quite a bit with a young family. That was tough. I was spending 2 or 3 nights a week in a hotel room, and I got tired after a few years of doing that. And I was actually serving the market of national defense, which is our largest travel consumer within the airline industry. So I actually ended up, just before I left the airline, started into real estate, and I started a company called Homefront Canada. So we help military people move across Canada, and we had agents in every base town. So I had to get really good at relocations, understanding, hey, because with the military person in Canada, they have what they call an HHT. It's a house hunting trip. So they have 4 days to fly in, find a house, and then get out.
Mandatory 4 days.
4 days. That's all they get. They fly in and they gotta get the house and get her done. As they say out in the East Coast, they gotta get her done. And these are very high-end alpha male mentality I've worked with a lot of individuals, whether it would be the lead negotiator for the hostages for the RCMP, or the lead legal counsel for the Army, and so some really interesting individuals that we've been working with, which is great. But they're very focused on, this is what we need to do, let's go. And when they come to buying a home in their family, it's very disruptive. It's very emotional. So we had to have a system in place in order to, help them through this relocation process. And we were quite successful at it. So we did that for a little while. And then I lost my parents in 2015. I was youngest of 4 boys, and my dad and I were best friends. And when they passed away, I kind of saw the struggles that siblings had and families had trying to take care of the items that were in the house, whether it was putting seniors into a retirement home or whatnot. So I ended up building another company called Seniors Homefront, which was a relocation company for seniors as they relocate out of their homes into retirement homes. And I started to kind of connect with different individuals that were in that space. And so this kind of kept on growing. And I was like, I'm really good at this relocation buying side. This makes sense. And then, of course, I really started to realize that there was an opportunity from helping the individual that had a question and how to get an answer to them. And that started me down the rabbit hole of understanding Google, understanding the clarity of how to deliver value on YouTube. And I was playing in those fields a little bit, and I was like, there's got to be something here. They got to be connected. Google, YouTube, your database, your ethics, your integrity, and your branding. It was all these different pieces that I was doing individually. But I was like, there's got to be some synergy to bring them together. And that's kind of what started me on this search. Now, going back a little bit, when I started in real estate, I would start on a team. We were doing online leads. We had an ISA that was booking appointments for us. And that experience was soul sucking. It was 2 years. Oh man, like 2 years of, 60% of my pay was being taken away, low trust, low conversion rates. The rates were getting lower as the years went on. And so I said to myself, if I'm going to last in this business, I need to figure out how to work by referral. I need to figure out something that I find fulfilling to me as an entrepreneur, something to keep it exciting, because, we know that the fortune's in the follow-up. And we know that the key to success is kind of boring, right? It's doing the little things every day consistently. So when I started dabbling with YouTube, which was part of my consistencies, that excited me, because now I can see this kind of content creation process and answering people's questions and delivering value. And so, yeah, that's where I went down that path.
Yeah, I want to touch on a couple of things there. So it seems like from that track record there, that you were always like coming up with solutions for problems that perhaps didn't have the best solutions, and we'll get into kind of what you're doing with agents right now and helping them out. But like, how did that come about? Like, because like when I was growing up, I watched my dad be an entrepreneur. He started a business, he ran a business, and he started the business when he was 40 years old, And so I watched that growing up. So that had a tremendous effect on me, that I always had this entrepreneurial spirit, right? But that's where I got that from. It wasn't until I was about 35 that I realized that that's what I was doing. Like, where did that piece come from? Did that just come naturally to you, or what was that?
It's I don't know where it came from. I know that I always struggled through school. I didn't have the best marks, and it was always kind of an odd thing to me, because I knew that when I focused on something, all of a sudden I accelerated in that area. I had hyper focus. And growing up in the 70s and 80s, they didn't really track that stuff. Now that I'm the father of 2 boys, one of my boys has ADHD. So as we go through this discovery process with him years ago, I was moving, and we actually came across all my old report cards, and I was like, what's going on here? Doesn't pay attention, doesn't focus, acts out in class. I'm like, maybe I had ADHD.
Sounds very familiar.
Right? What's going on here? So I kind of realized that there was something askew there. And then all of a sudden, when I started to get into the process, my career was like a trajectory of promotions. Like, I went from hotel to hotel to hotel. Whoever offered more money and offered a little more vacation time, that's where. And so my transcendency in that industry kind of went up with the handouts I was given. it wasn't until I left the airline industry that I had an opportunity to really explore real estate, where I was like, I love this industry. I love helping people. I love seeing this opportunity. And that's where my entrepreneurial spirit kind of took off. I started
Mm,
seeing, wait a minute, I can brand myself. I can build this whole marketing beast. And everything works, as we know, right? You could do door knocking, you could go do cold calling, you could do online leads.
mm,
Whatever you focus on expands. And so for me, being able to kind of see those things and say, hey, I could really build this out and see the fruition of where that goes. And I think for
yeah.
me, that was the most rewarding thing. Seeing a system that I built in a process and go, whoa, it works.
Mm,
And so I think, with YouTube, I'm a very much a proof of concept person. I have a low trust, which is my thing I need to work on.
mm,
And I find that when I was doing YouTube, when the first person reached out to me and actually wanted to help, I was like, this works.
yeah.
Okay. How do we build a process and system around this now? Let's get going. So I think for me, always, and I think it kind of stemmed back in the hotel days when we had challenges where we only had a certain amount of meeting space to block and guest rooms, and it happened on certain times. The clients were always, they had these major conventions that would go city to city. So you had to almost convince them why Ottawa was such a great spot to go to
Mm,
over Toronto or Montreal, these sexier cities. And so we had to get creative about what kind of solution can we offer this corporate client in order to bring their major conference here, which is a win-win for the hotel.
mm.
So we
So
got really
again,
creative.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So again, you were coming up with a solution to a problem that you saw. So okay,
Yeah.
well let's dive into that then, because tell me about how the Google, and so for you guys watching, we're not going to have time to jump into all of this. Like, I'll link Peter's channel down below. You can go in there and jump into the matrix and see what he does. He shares everything on his channel, and he's helped me tremendously and a bunch of the agents that we work with together. This ecosystem of like Google and YouTube and stuff like that. Like, how did that even come about? Like, where did you start that thought process from? And how did you even go about building this out? Are there other people doing this that you found like a blueprint from, or was this a whole trial and error thing? Because I've never seen what you do done by anyone else before, and I'm always just like, how did this come around? So tell me how it happened.
Absolutely. So I guess it all kind of started when I was dabbling around on podcasts. But the business for me really focused on relationships. So when I switched from doing the online leads to converting to more, how do I build, work by referral? I started following the Buffini process of building a sphere of influence and database. And doing that for years, we had a really strong database, having client events, pop-bys, notes, calls, really strong relationships with my sphere. And then we started adding layers to it. Like, how do you you could just do that for your business and have it grow and compound over time. But I'm always like, hey, how do you get there faster? How do you get there with a better process? And so we started adding different elements to the sphere of influence marketing, which really, started to really exemplify that process over the long term. And then one night, putting my boys to bed, kind of came across a podcast talking about YouTube and how you can use it for marketing purposes. And they started talking about, keyword searching. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I was trying to change my snowblower at one point, trying to maintain it. And I found the information on YouTube and I learned it because I'm very visual. And then my wife and I would have, heated discussions about how to find information on something. So she's like, I'm not going to watch a 10-minute video on something. I'm going to read about it. And I'm like, honey, I'm not going to read about it. I want to see someone doing it and teach me
Yeah,
how to do it.
it's
So I
that proof.
realized
Is
that there
proof of
was,
concept again, right? If I can see that
yeah,
you fixed this thing, then I know it works. If I read it in a book, I'm just taking your word for it.
that absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I'm just talking to you and getting more clarity on myself. This is great. So, I knew that there's people in the world that wanted to read the information and visual, and then there's the visual learners, right? And so I feel like there was a real kind of balance between these two. Started doing the YouTube videos, started putting the information out there. And about a year into that process, when I was putting out different neighborhood guides and stuff, I would go back into Google and pull up a window and actually see that the ranking of that video was ranking higher. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But then I saw all the other websites in that that page were lead generation sites, and I knew they're paying for that traffic.
Mm.
So then I said, there's got to be a way to actually rank organically, and there's got to be a combination between that video and the actual website so that the two integrate. Because I knew that Google was the largest search engine. I knew YouTube was the second largest search engine, although there's some arguments now that they're saying Google Images is the second largest search engine, but we'll see how that plays out. And so I knew that there had to be something, but nobody was doing this. So I really went down the YouTube rabbit hole for a while, really learning the algorithm, understand the process. And as I did that, I was building all this content. And I was like, wait, I'm already replicating this content from the strongest thing, which was video. I could rip it out to a podcast. I could rip it out to a post into social media, or I could pull the content that was written into a blog format. And I felt for me at that point, there's only so much time. And serving clients and showing houses and being a family man, I knew that I needed to put that time into where is the highest return on my investment of this content that I'm already creating. And for me, it was Google. If I could dominate the Google space, I could dominate the Google My Business space, and I could dominate in the YouTube space. Those weren't going anywhere. And I think the one thing that really was overpowering for me was the fact that it was evergreen SEO content that was always going to be there. If I shot a video, that video would be a little sales soldier for me out in the war, trying to find people that are looking for that information, and then they'll go down the rabbit hole and see more videos and get to know me. And I wanted to have that on the Google side as well. So that kind of started this, hey, is there a way to integrate these two? And how do you, once integrated, how do you stream them into your business, into a database? And then how do you get that warm referral? And I think, the one thing for me has always been like, if John reached out to me, the value of one client, I think that's really something realtors have to ask themselves. What's the value of this client? It's not just one transaction. It's that transaction plus maybe two other referrals that they might give you over the course of a couple of years. And how many houses might they sell through you? Well, if the average person is to give you 5 deals, what is that average? That's the value of that lifetime of that client. Well, if John comes in through Google and I can integrate him into a database and properly market to him, the referrals out of that opportunity are huge. So I treat Google and YouTube like feeders into my database.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny because we were on a call the other day, the two of us, with George Bryant, and he's, that's what he's talking about, like the value, what that customer journey looks like. I know that's something that you dive into a lot, but it's interesting because I think with a lot of lead generation online, because I talk to agents all the time, and specifically new agents are always like, okay, well, I'd love something to have someone who like gives me leads. And it's more kind of like the concept of leads these days is like so skewed that, people just look at them like transactions, and like, how many leads will it take to do a transaction? How many leads will it take to get this? And what's the conversion rate of a Facebook lead? And it's like, well, it really depends on you. I think, it's like conversion rates are a very blanket statement. If the both of us have the same online lead and you put them into your system and I just throw them into a CRM and drip campaign on them, we're going to have two very different outcomes for the lifetime of those leads. So I think that's a very interesting discussion because, I think it's no secret that we've seen like, Facebook leads kind of really start to disintegrate since, all the different laws and stuff came in. Same with Instagram, I find for me, it's YouTube and, recently Google because of what you've been doing. So have you seen, is there any stats that you know of, or I guess like out of like 10 leads that come through your system, like what would a typical number look like, in terms of like immediate transactions and then perhaps long-term engagement with referrals?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I know
Tough
that
question.
97 to 98% of people are looking online for their home, right? For buying and selling. So the majority of people are on the internet. Google, the stats are unbelievable. They're so far ahead of Bing, which is the second search engine result. And YouTube is so far ahead from a video perspective that these two just dominate. And it's interesting because you see it's been about 3 years of doing this process now for me. And I see so much different patterns show up as something in the news pops up. All of a sudden you start to see the shift of people that reach out to you. You know, when the economy and the gas and oil industry, you'd start to see people from the West come out to relocate into Ottawa.
Mm.
When we went through COVID, you could see this expansive where people were coming from rural areas coming into the city and vice versa. They were going back out. You know, even down in the US when the elections were coming up, I saw a transition of people that were getting frustrated with all the politics, and they wanted to reach out and see what life would be like.
I think I was probably searching at that point.
Yeah, yeah, you were. You know, I just had a lot of people from different countries, and it's such a wide array. You know, I've had people from Japan, from Singapore, from Africa, from India, from Europe, from England. Like when the Russian conflict broke out, we saw a lot of the gas prices go up in the UK. A lot of people from the UK were the cost of living really started to skyrocket, so they started to look for alternative opportunities. So there's all these, but then with that comes different people, right? You're looking for people that are renting, looking for people that are buying. How do you qualify them? How do you stay in touch? Which ones are serious? Which ones are not? How do you get them qualified? So there's this whole process we had to build on the back end to service all these people and be able to help onboard them into Ottawa, but also onboard them into your database and the system to stay in touch. So, you know, there really wasn't, some were kind of just kicking tires and some were quite serious. When they were serious, they were motivated. It's amazing when someone puts their mind to something, because they will move rather quickly. Within about 2 or 3 months, these people were converting very fast.
Wow.
The price points were quite high. They were well prepared, well educated, and they did the research. And the great thing about the Google YouTube side is that these people were already in that space researching it. So by the time they reach out to you, they've already watched 20-year videos, and they're like, Peter, you're the guy. I've been watching 20-year videos. I feel like I already know you. We're buying, you know, we're looking at $1.2 million. Will you be able to help us? And so it's quite impactful to meet these people in person. They treat you almost like a celebrity, which is, you know, and so there's the idea of trying to build trust is already built through the qualifying funnel of building this marketing attraction funnel for your business.
It's funny that you say that, because I was at an in-person event yesterday, and I had a couple people came up to me, were like, "Oh, hey, I saw you on this thing," and I was like, "Whoa, weird." You know, it's very, very strange, and I think that goes to show that I think a lot of us who make video content and stuff and put it out there in the real estate space, we think there's a lot of people doing it, but really there's not. I think there's opportunity for agents to really dive in and do this properly. So, you know, I think what I want to touch on, kind of, you know, as we start to wrap up, is I guess I think of, you know, foosball, right? We call it table football where I'm from, right? Foosball. I kind of look at like my business that way in terms of online lead generation, right? I look at like the Google search as like the goalkeeper, the single person. That's like the first point of entry where people are searching or whatever. Could be for me or could be for a topic. The next line of like defenders is like reviews and stats and stuff like that. The next one is all my YouTube videos with all the, you know, all the players, and then they put it up to like my funnels and my conversions and stuff like that, and then that should hopefully get us to a goal, you know, or some kind of strategy like that. But I'm always like, there's multi layers of how we're doing things, and I think that's the really cool thing about your system and how it all operates together. So maybe give us like a bird's eye view of like, if a lead comes into the system or something like that, how are they getting there typically? What does that all look like in terms of like master planning your like a month by month strategy or whatever that looks like? Like what are you doing? What are you posting? How are you doing it? You know, obviously we can deep dive into your videos on your channel, but like a bird's eye view just to get people like, oh, this is actually not hugely difficult. It just takes, you know, dedication.
Absolutely. So I think from you know, it started on the YouTube side. So it was really about the keyword searching. So we were kind of understanding what are the highest ranking keywords, what makes sense in the YouTube environment, and how does the algorithm work? And so we're starting to build content around that. And we were kind of answering the questions from that perspective. And from a high level, you know, I always see the database as the nucleus of your business, right? If you don't have a proper CRM tool and database, that is the backbone of your business. Without that, if you're buying online leads, you don't own a business. But if you actually have, you know, a database of actual real relationships, that's key. And so, the branding, the personal branding, how you want to show up, what your kind of whole over premise is this nucleus, as I call it. And for me, then YouTube and Google are kind of these feeder pools. So it's almost like this is a big, sea of opportunity. And we just have these streams of new great relationships coming into that database. And it's not everybody. We don't want to serve everybody, right? Because as you get busy in the business, you want to identify who you best fit with, who are your best clients. And so in that database, we understand who are the best ones that give us the best return, who are the ones we most align to. And the YouTube and Google really is a qualifier. People see you and they self-qualify themselves. And as they come in, they align with you, they like you, they fall in your database, and it just kind of mixes together. So, and then how do we capture them? And really it's from using the keyword searching that comes in through the YouTube and the Google side. We're trying to solve their information. We're giving value in our own perspective. We're kind of wrapping up ourselves in that process of here's the package, here's the book to your answer, here's the cover, and it looks nice, look it on the shelf, and you click it. So that's a thumbnail, that's the Google blog post, and how you position it. So as they come in through that way, we start to meet with them, chat with them. And so usually they'll come in through many different forms of communication. Could be a comment on the YouTube, could be WhatsApp, could be text, could be a call, could be an email, myriad of communication patterns. Right away, we want to drive them. We want to qualify them right off the bat. We want to find out exactly what their timeline is. Are they buying? Are they renting? Where are they at? What challenges do we have to get them here into Canada? Or if they're already in Canada, what does that situation look like? And from there, we'll jump onto a video call. And it's a way for us to kind of connect and further qualify. And then we share with them our process. We have certain tools that we've developed for our team here, which are great. So one of them is an automated property search, which feeds them daily opportunities of property matches specific to their criteria. The second is a property tracker, which is actually a document we've created that we share with them, and the buyers absolutely love it because they can update it. We can update it with our virtual assistants and then send that information back out to them. And we're just staying top of mind, giving value through the whole process. And then, of course, we drive them to the road trip, as we call it. So as they come into Ottawa, we've identified different neighborhoods that make sense for what they're looking for. And they explore these 8 neighborhoods. And we're like, hey, by the time your trip's over, we're going to be down to 3 neighborhoods. That's where we're going to start to really dive in to find those houses. And then the real work begins from there. And then for me, it's really about, carrying them from that beginning onboarding stage. And then after the purchase of the property, what does that lifeline look like? So we're staying in touch with them, adding value, popping by. And there's a whole process and client events that continues this process. It's a whole ecosystem for sure. It's tough to get into any which one because they can get pretty deep.
But that's where
yeah, that's the kind of,
and that's where the lifetime of the client comes from. After the closing, those other 4 deals are going to come from that follow-up process. I think that's one of the most missed opportunities of realtors ever, including myself. It's just it's on to the next one. It's on to the next one, and it's so difficult. Is that what you use your VAs for, or how do you utilize that? Because I'm huge on virtual assistants, but what do you utilize them for?
Yeah. So the VA really has been taking up the stuff that I need to get off my plate. That is, there's a few different ways we use them. We use them certainly for the property trackers. There is some onboarding, but usually a lot of that stuff is handled by myself. I only have a part-time virtual assistant at this point, but we are looking to go full-time later this year. So we actually help them with the onboarding process. They're also involved with the property trackers. And then we also have them kind of strategically involved with the social media side of things. I very rarely dabble into the Instagram, Facebook, and the TikTok because I just find for me, posting right away and then having it disappear the next day just wasn't really appealing to me. I wanted to do something that was evergreen from a presence perspective and is searchable. It wasn't about, hey, I want this huge volume of leads, but a lot of them weren't really super qualified. I wanted really qualified, and I wanted like really good leads so that when I am spending my time talking or following up or spending time with them, I know that it's going somewhere. And so that was key to me. Eventually, if we can expand the team, we'll probably start to do that from the social media perspective. But for me, it's really about diving into these evergreen side. But certainly, yeah, the VA is part of that. And there's so many areas we could actually deploy the VA in the future, we think. But we're still kind of fleshing out a last part of the system. And certainly the things that you and I are working on in that new tool that we're using called School, that's phenomenal. And I think that's going to be the VA really starts to come into hand, because the one thing that I'm working with a few of your colleagues in your team is this kind of customer journey. And what
Yeah.
does that look like long term? And mapping that out from every step of the process for the client to come through, whether it's a buyer or seller. How do you find those opportunities? Because we know that the failure rate's 80% for realtors in the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And the majority, I think, I think the stat was 75% of buyers and sellers would work with their previous agent if they remembered who they were.
Oh.
And so, right, so we're not staying in touch. Like, they would work with you, but you haven't followed up with them in 5 years. So this
Oh.
map of a customer journey is like, hey, how do you take this? It's not just drip. Like, this is a whole full on. How do you develop your sphere of influence? How do you build trust? How do you build loyalty? How do you build referrals, warm referrals? So that if you give this a couple of years, the momentum will just take off, and it'll just be like your database is already taking care of you for the long
Mm.
term. And so that's really the key for me. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'd love to definitely chat about that specifically in the future. I think that's such a huge, honestly, for selfish reasons more than anything else, because I'm so bad at that. I have
Yeah,
shiny object syndrome, you know.
we all are. We
Yeah.
don't want to pick up the
Thanks,
phone
Peter.
and have those awkward conversations, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
so much.
but it does work when you give it,
Yeah.
and people are so happy to see you. They're like, man, I haven't seen you for 6 months. How are you? And so it's
Yeah.
great when you can do it.
Yeah. Amazing. Peter, where can people find you? Where can they follow you on YouTube and all that good stuff?
Yeah, they can check me out on Living in Ottawa. So living-inottawa.ca is our website. We're Living in Ottawa on the YouTube channel. They can check me out, Peter Twolan, which is where we're actually helping a lot of our agents to understand this Google YouTube sphere of influence. So we're putting out weekly content there to actually drive people to understand how this kind of ecosystem works in a highly searchable, organic, free lead process.
Hmm.
And if they click in there, they'll find more information with all my contact information in the videos.
Yeah. And the other thing, you know, to kind of bring this full circle, that, you know, proof of concept is something that I think both of us are big on. Maybe just finish off with a couple of stats of like your success from this algorithm, from building out Google and YouTube. Like, what has this done for your business?
I would say so, nine years in the business, and after the second year, I really focused on working by referral. So I was doing about 40 to 45 transactions per year, every year, and so a top producing agent. And when I implemented the system, I would say that it has quickly added to my business, and it probably accounts for about 60% of my business at this point.
Dang.
So it's and the beautiful thing is when you actually it's people you want to work with. Like they
Mm,
already know you, they like you, they trust you, and they're great people. So it's only
mm,
just compounded over time.
yeah. Love it, man. Love it. Well, listen, Peter, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. We'll do this again for sure. We'll dig into more stuff. You and I could probably sit here for about 3 hours and jam out about all this nerd stuff.
Probably.
But yeah, people, you have to go and follow Peter's channel, learn about what he's doing. He's incredible. The agency he works with as well have seen insane growth and just game-changing way to run your business in a way that's like less of a slog, but is more like Peter's saying, working with people that you actually enjoy working with. And I think that can make all the difference in your business. So follow Peter. All the links will be in the description below, guys. And Peter, thanks again, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, my friend. Good seeing you.